Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be doing a tier list. Finally, I know it's been a while, and we're going to be doing something that is kind of like a meme on my channel, but it's on the other way around, and that is ranking every Pixar movie. We're going to be doing this by the year of release date, so let's get started. So to start things off, of course, we have the original Toy Story, and in my opinion, this one goes into the S tier. It's a very great movie, and some may say it's like one of the greatest movies of all time. I mean, this movie has some of the highest review scores for any animation film of all time, and I can agree with those scores, as this movie is great, and it's a great start to a franchise that will become a staple for Pixar, and they will continue it even after even after the end of the trilogy. Next up, we have A Bug's Life, and in my opinion, this one goes in the B tier, as I didn't really get like a special attachment to this movie. I mean, in my opinion, I think it was okay at best, but with everything else, the story and everything, it didn't really hook me as much, but it's still a pretty good movie in my opinion. Next up, we have Toy Story 2, and now this one also goes into the S tier, as it basically does what the original Toy Story did, and just expands it even further and introduces new characters such as Jessie and Bullseye. On top of that, this movie has some of the funniest humor ever, especially with the three aliens from the original Toy Story. Next up, Monsters, Inc., and this one also goes into the S tier, as also with Toy Story 2, this movie has some of the funniest humor ever. And unfortunately, I saw this one after Monsters University, which we will get to in a moment. But I still feel like it was a good idea to go back to the original one, as this one is very funny and it has some of the funniest meme moments in Pixar history. Next up is Finding Nemo, and I know people are going to hate me for this, but I'm going to have to put this in the A tier, as, I mean, most people would say this is their favorite Pixar movie, which I can agree with that statement. I mean, this movie is absolutely phenomenal, but at least for me, I didn't really get, just like with Bug's Life, I didn't get a special attachment to this movie, but in my opinion, it's a little bit better than Bug's Life, because I've seen this movie a couple of times, but for the S tier, I'm putting movies that I've seen like more than like at least 5 times, and might be some of my favorite animation movies ever. So sorry about that. And that statement goes to The Incredibles, which goes to the S tier, and I also like this one as well as the sequel. And in my opinion, this one is one of the best action animated movies ever, and it has some of the funniest jokes, with Mr. Incredible being fat at the beginning of the movie. I mean, what is there else to say about this movie? This movie goes in the S tier, as it's my favorite movie of all time. And I'm sure you mostly know about this, but I freaking love Cars to death. I've seen this movie so many times as a kid, and it made me want to collect all the die-cast figures, which I don't do for the other series, and I still do that with Cars 3 today. Next up, we have Ratatouille, and I know there's a PS3 game for this one, and I have not played it yet, but I might put the game in the B tier, which is, even though I haven't played it yet, but the movie goes in the B tier, as it's, as I did see this movie, but the only gripe with it I have is that it's very long. I mean, it's one of the longest Pixar movies ever, but it's not the longest, if you count the credits, as Cars takes the award for the longest Pixar movie, being around 2 hours with the credits and the tribute to Joe Ranft. But without the credits, this movie might take the cake as the longest film of all time. And it's a little bit boring, and there isn't a lot of great parts to it. Next up, WALL-E, and this one goes in the A tier, as it's really amazing, and it shows us that we humans need to be very careful with the way we are, as one day we might be replaced by robots, and even though that might be a benefit to some of us who are in our chairs with ultra-wide monitors in front of us, and some of you might be using those ultra-wide monitors to watch this video, it might not be very good. So WALL-E gives us a good little message to prevent that from happening. Up is next, and it's also a B tier, even though this Movie has some of the one of the strongest and saddest beginnings to an animation movie of all time, with Mr. and Mrs. Fredricksen being married and Mr. Fredricksen being all alone, and uh, and and then Mr. Fredricksen and Russell learn at the end that a house is just a house. Toy Story 3 S tier, and I feel like a pattern you'll see even also with Toy Story 4 that every Toy Story movie just keeps getting better and better. I mean, but unfortunately that isn't the case with Toy Story 3. But it seems to go back to the roots of the original Toy Story, um, with every single main character from the series, plus some new characters like Lotso the bear, I think that's his name. But he's kind of a jerk, but overall that doesn't stop this movie from being one of the best animation movies of all time. Cars 2 is up next, and if I was Matt, I would put this in the S tier, but since I'm Khalid, I'll have to put this movie in the A tier, as this movie does give us a good shot of being a sequel into the original Cars, and my favorite movie of all time. But the only problem I have with this one is that it's a big Mater's Tall Tales, and that's not a problem. I love the Mater's Tall Tales. I love like Guitar Mater, Moon Mater, all these Mater shorts, especially Tokyo Mater. That one's really good, but I feel like this one just goes a little bit too far in making Mater like a known character, but he doesn't even have a big role in the movie anyway. It's mostly Finn McMissile and Holly Shiftwell most of the time, so that's why it takes out of the main character most of the time. Next up, Brave. Now, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put this in the D tier, simply because I haven't seen it before. I've seen the trailers for it, but I haven't seen it before, so unfortunately, it has to go on the lowest spot. Next up, Monsters University, and this one is nearly the same thing, but almost better as the original Monsters Inc., so it goes in the S tier, as this movie is extremely funny and is a good shot at a prequel to one of the funniest Pixar movies and funniest animation movies of all time. Inside Out is going in the B tier, mostly because I've only seen a bit of the beginning and a bit of the half and a bit of the end. But maybe one day I will be able to watch all of the movie. As to be fair, this movie has a little bit of humor in it, but most of it is pure depression, thanks to good old sadness, and most of it is a little bit boring. But some of it does have good humor, and that's why it goes in the middle. Good Dinosaur, I've seen only the beginning of it, and I might be able to see most of it in the future, but for now, it goes in the C tier. Finding Dory, so it's almost a continuation, so yeah, it goes in the A tier. It's mostly a continuation of Finding Nemo, but it's almost the same thing, but this time it relies on Dory finding her parents, which in my opinion is good, but I have not seen the full ending, and I really should get to that before I shed some tears. Cars 3. Now this goes in the S tier for going back to the series roots with staying in America instead of going around the world. And to be fair, the around the world thing gave Cars 2 a little bit of value. But Cars 3, in my opinion, I saw it the day it was in theaters, and I generally couldn't contain my love for the movie. As you know how much I love Cars, this movie gave me some excitement from the day I saw the teaser trailer the day it came out to the day of the release day of the movie. Now we have Coco, and I've seen like the beginning and the end of it, but I feel like this movie does hit in the feels a little bit, but that's okay, as it does have some humor and it does give a life lesson, which I really appreciate. Incredibles 2, with the action and humor and continuation of the original Incredibles, this movie takes the S tier for sure. The only problem is, I don't know why it took 14 years to make a sequel, but that's not a problem, as this movie is absolutely astounding. I'm trying not to shed tears right now thinking about this, but Toy Story 4 is the final Toy Story movie of the trilogy after 24 years of amazing history of the franchise, and it definitely goes in the S tier. Every Toy Story movie so far has been in the S tier, and for good reason. Toy Story 4 does give a amazing finale. It brings Bo Peep back, and she is as savage as ever. Um, but yeah, the movie does have a lot of humor in it, and it does hit in the feels very, very hard with the ending. Oh, the ending. And finally, the latest Pixar movie, Onward. And unfortunately, I might have to give it a C tier. I mean, I did see the entire movie and I did think it was okay, but in my opinion, this movie was not as good as the other ones. But hopefully, Soul when it comes out might take B, A, or S. And here is the entire tier list. I believe this tier list has a good value in it, and in my opinion, it does have a good variety of movies in it. And I also believe that it does hit in the field a little bit, but I believe that people will agree with this list as some of these movies are just fantastic. So that, you guys, is what I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I know I don't normally make this type of content, but I just wanted to go into the tier list wagon before the train goes away and I miss my ride. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.